Hello, everyone. This is Martinus Oosthuizen from 5-2 Investments. Tomorrow is exactly 1 year since I've done my last presentation. And so I'm very excited. And let's kick it off. Nearly exactly a year ago, I put this presentation out where I made a few predictions. I ended off giving my prophetic word of what I think is going to come in the world. Well, a year's gone by. Let's have a look and see if my prediction of a global financial collapse and the rest of what I predicted has come to pass. So here is a picture of the last slide that I went through with you, and I'm going to read through it and go through this in detail. And today we are going to look at if this has happened or not, and to what degree it has happened. So I wrote, here's what is going to happen. Global debt will spiral out of control. US dollar will become worthless. US stock markets will collapse. Rest of the world to follow. Derivatives will cause crash to worsen. Worldwide debt will become unpayable. Jobs will be lost globally at an unprecedented rate. The highest unemployment rate and biggest dependency on governments. The world will look for safe havens. Gold and other precious metals will skyrocket. Global supply chain will collapse due to insufficient demand. New trade routes have already emerged since global lockdowns in 2020, and these new trade routes will rise and strengthen. Food will become unaffordable for most. Countries which are most self-sufficient will become the leaders. And then I said that I'm happy living in South Africa, where we've got great farmers. I have a vehicle available for those who want to invest in agriculture and into the future and into staying alive, quite frankly. And I believe that going back to the basics is what the future is going to look like. So let's take a look to see if these things have happened. This is the list of ones that have already taken place. So I've been telling my clients when I've met with them, you know, a year ago, when you watched this presentation of mine, you needed a form of faith to believe these things that I'm predicting. You needed, you know, like a way of finding ground of, is this true or is it not? You needed to be able to stand on, do you think that this is going to happen or not? Today, you don't need faith to believe what I've told you because it's already happened. So we're going to run through this. So global debt will spiral out of control. I'm going to show you the stats on that today. It is eye-watering and not in a good way. US stock markets have already collapsed. I mean, they're officially in a recession. They've lost 20% this year. And the rest of the world, as you'll see, has carried on. Worldwide debt will become unpayable. Countries like Sri Lanka have already defaulted on their debt, the first time in their history. The global supply chain will collapse due to insufficient demand. Now, I'm a guy that is into cars, so I follow the trend on cars. I'm always looking and browsing around when I drive past a dealership, see what's in there. And I remember earlier this year, you could not get your hands on majority of Toyotas. I even remember going into a dealership and the guys being, you know, very proudful of the fact that they've got no stock and there's no negotiation on prices. Well, I drove past the dealership a few days ago and they had at least 10 double cab buckies on their showroom. The same place that did not even have one on order. So there's this big supply and demand problem that we've got where there's far too much supply, but we'll get into that in more details later. So new trade routes have already emerged since the global lockdown. I mean, we're looking at things like BRICS. Now, I'm not going to get into BRICS at all. I'm just mentioning it now. I don't have time with this presentation. This is a jam-packed presentation. So stay focused. You might want to listen to it 2 or 3 times to grasp the magnitude of what's going on here. So I'm going to run through it quickly. Pause it if you need to catch up with what I might have explained. Go for it. So new trade routes will rise and strengthen. I mean, BRICS are getting members being added to them, moving away from the previous trade routes of, using the US, using their currencies, etc. So food will become unaffordable for most. I'm pretty sure, I don't need to tell you about that one. My own household, I have seen my bills skyrocket. So let's go through the news reports, everything that the world is telling us is going on. I've taken snippets from every time I saw something that was really relevant, I'd grab it. Now, I will just add one thing. This presentation, majority of it was done in person in July this year with my clients in Gauteng, South Africa, and in KZN, South Africa. So some of this data is from middle of the year, some even first quarter, and I've compiled this, and then I've added one or two to it. So if you want to be more up to date with what's going on, and you'll have to become a client of ours. And so that's the advantage of being our client. You get up-to-date information more frequently than just these presentations, once, maybe twice a year. But let's run into this slideshow. So we've got Sri Lanka defaulting on their debt for the first time in history. This is May this year. 2 months later, Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Zambia, and Suriname is added to this list. I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of them that's been added to them since this war in Russia and Ukraine has been going on. Then we've got, now this is a few months back, but while Biden was in Israel, he gets bad news from home saying the inflation rate is sitting at 9.1%. Now, look here, you might be a guy that's up to date. So you'll say, well, look here, it's already down to 8.2. But that's not the emphasis of why I've added it in there. I've put that in there because it's the first time in over 40 years that America has hit that type of inflation. So one of the trends I want you to look out for in this presentation is not just the figures, not just the astronomical figures, but the time periods in which these things have not taken place in. So you'll see this trend, first time in over 40 years. So if you take 40 years, that's pre-2007-8 global financial crisis. That's pre the dot-com bubble. That's pre the 1980, the 3 recessions essentially that happened one after the other there. That's pre all of that. And I'm asking the question, what is happening that is so astronomical that it's bigger than all these things? And some of the data even worse than that. So stay tuned. S&P 500 wobbles to the end of its worst first half since 1970. Can you grasp that? If you are less than 52 years old, the stock market has never been as bad as what it has been this year, the year 2022. Grasp that. Then, following skyrocket inflation, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates in the United States by 0.75%, the largest increase since 94. People, once again, the largest increase, the first time in a really, really, really long period that we haven't seen these contractions. Once again, predating the dot-com bubble, predating the global financial crisis. So let's look into that last one before we carry on with more news clips. So this is the longest dated back, interest rate graph that I could find. And I'm going to show you a trend here. So on the right there, you'll see that arrow. What I did is I'm showing you how quickly the interest rates increased. So look at the degrees to which the arrow is slanted. Now I took that exact arrow and I copy and pasted it next to some other specific periods, which we'll look at now. And I'm saying, when last did we see such a quick acceleration of interest rates in such a short space of time? So let's look at it. Let's compare it to 2006-7 global financial crisis. What happened? Not even close. 94, the last time that they increased it by so much in such a short space of time, it happened for a really short period. They did it once, and then it just went up gradually after that. You'll see that on this one that we had this year, it happened double the amount in about the same period. Then let's go back to the 70s. Now, I know what some of you might think. You'll say, but Martinez, why did you start the graph there? You're starting it. You should be taking it to 1979, maybe 1980, where that graph has just gone straight to the roof. But you'll be making a mistake there, because you've got to start at the starting point. Because in the 1970s, it started gradually, and then it accelerated to going, straight north. This one just went straight north. And that's the reason you're going to pick up the string throughout the presentation. This is the first time it is so bad. This is the first time that things are happening, abnormalities that we are not used to. We've never seen these things in long periods, at least not even in the world as we know it, the way that the world's been structured currently. So let's carry on. So UK's inflation hit a 40-year high of 9.4%, right? This is July this year. Now, I don't think I need to speak about inflation. I think every single country globally knows the impact of it, so I don't need to punt this point. But the reality is the 40 years, it's the first time in 40 years. So look, if you're in university, you don't really know what the benchmark is. This is older than you've been alive. You don't realize that, hey, there was a time period when, interest rates were sitting at 24% and, buying a car was 3 times more expensive than it is now on debt. So I want to paint this picture for you. My goal today is to take the complicated, the things in the world that people say, okay, I'm hearing all of this noise. What do I do with it? What does it mean for me? How can I gear my life to not maybe even take advantage of it, because it might be too late, but how can I quickly curb, learn from this, never get myself into trouble like this again? So next line there, 8, the number of days the S&P 500 has been down by more than 2% this year. We've already seen more large down days in 2022 than the whole of 2021. Now remember, that's only for the first 2 quarters of this year. There was more negative days than the whole of the previous year. Well, let's just say the rest has been history. This has been the worst year ever. Then $82 billion is the amount that people withdrew from their households in equity in the second quarter of this year alone. Once again, maybe you don't know what that means. Maybe you don't understand the gravity of the value, but look at the rest of the sentence. The most in 15 years. Let's make this clear. 2022 minus 15 gets you 2007. Guess what happened in 2007? That was the start of what was supposed to be the collapse that we are having right now. But the US Fed decided they are going to start this crazy, ludicrous thing called printing of money, quantitative easing. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, please go watch my previous presentation and even the one before that. It is going to blow your mind. You have to grasp this fact that the world we live in now has been built on this fake reality, this fake cash that is going to cause a lot of people harm, and it's been planned. So please stay tuned. 40 years, the next line, 40 years. This week was the first time in 40 years that all investment categories simultaneously declined. Now, what normally happens is when, say, the stock market goes down, you'll see things like bonds going up, etc. This was the first time that all of them went down. So on the 30th of June, the market witnessed a declining market among stocks, cryptocurrencies, bonds, and the US dollar. Okay? That just, it doesn't happen, right? The next one, most of my presentation is built on the next one, and hence I'm showing this information. 3.3% is where the market expected the Fed to be going to by March 2023. I say expected because guess what? We're in October 2022 and it's already reached 3.3%. And you'll see at the end of my presentation, this is just the beginning. People, this presentation is very much doom and gloom, but it's there to warn you. If you can equip yourself with what's coming, if you can say, this is what's coming, you can better position yourself. Would you like to sit on a chair, falling asleep, and the tide has turned, and all of a sudden high tide's coming in, and you're still fast asleep, and the tide whacks you from underneath your chair and waking up, falling in water? Or would you like to be awake, facing the wave, see what's going on, and moving your chair back slowly by slowly? I'm giving you the warnings of what's coming, and I'm trying to make it plain and simple because I want the average person, the person on the street, the person, the single mother, the family trying to get by that's not savvy. I want you to understand what I'm telling you here today. This presentation, I've done it in person for my clients. This is not only for my clients as a recap. This is for the average person out there. And brokers, I want to tell you something today. My heart is for you. There's a lie that's been sown to brokers and investment managers, especially in South Africa for many years, that you are not capable of explaining to your client what's going on. You've got to rely on some other people. What I want to tell you today, you are capable of doing that. And this presentation, I want to make it plain and simple so you can get this message out to your clients. You can position them in a way that can protect them. Not only will they not lose money going forward, but they will also be in a position to potentially make money when the rest of the world collapses. Then the next one, 80% of the US dollar in circulation was created in the last 22 months. Now, that was quite a few months back. So let's just say from 2020 onwards, 80% of the money that America owns has just been printed in the last 2.5 years. People, this is scary stuff. We live in a fake world. And the problem is, I think that even most financial savvy people are saying, okay, but if I pull this string, what moves on that side? And most people don't really know. So I'm going to hopefully give you an idea of what's coming. And hopefully, if you watch my previous presentation and you're watching this one now, you'll see that what I said was going to come to pass. It would boost your faith in what I'm saying. And maybe this time you'll be able to create some action and make some changes before what's coming next, because this is going to get way worse. So please be ready. Then the American national debt surpasses 30 trillion for the first time. We're going to get into that in detail, so I'm not going to explain that now, as well as the global debt reaching 226 trillion by the end of 2020. Now, I've done a little bit of research on what the current figure is. I don't quite like the places that are giving the information, and the ones that I believe in haven't given the figures, but they're throwing figures out like 300 trillion. People, just grasp that. The global debt has gone up since 2020 by more than 30%. I ask a lot of people this question. Do you think that the world is in a better place or a worse place than before lockdown started in 2020? Most people say it's in a worse place, right? There's more poverty. So many people are still devastated by the effects, especially tourism industry, travel, So most people definitely agree with me that the world is not in a better place. Okay, so if you can take that and make it concrete, I'll ask you the question. If the world's not in a better place, why has global debt increased? So are you telling me this is because people expanded their businesses, started building infrastructure, they've been building additional properties for gain? 30% debt's been increased by? Forget about it. No ways. It's probably the opposite. People are probably being enslaved into debt just to survive right now because they've got no other option. And I think one of the worst things is, since we came out of these lockdowns, everybody has been traveling and buying bigger pieces of land and expanding their properties because I don't want to be locked down in this small little cramped space anymore. And so the problem with that is people have gone and bought nicer, fancier cars. They are saying, I'm going to live my life and not be stuck again. And the trick worked. They got us indebted. And let's read the last part of that sentence. Seeing the biggest 1-year increase since World War II. People, we are not rebuilding the world since the world was in war. It's not like the world is going forward. If the world was going forward, all the stock markets would be positive. And I'm going to show you exactly the opposite has been happening, which means that that debt is going to come biting a lot of people. Please stay tuned until the part of this presentation where I'm going to explain to you interest rates and how that is directly going to impact these people that have gone and indebted themselves. So Japan made an intervention of at least $30 billion to prop up the yen, which is their currency. And the second intervention in 1 month, two in 1 month, to prop up the yen after it fell to a fresh 32-year low against the dollar. Now, I know I'm going to give a lot of information, but I wish you would watch this a few times and just do a little bit of Googling yourself in between. So I'm going to give you the phrases to look for. How much of the world's cars, motorbikes, I would like to think at least half of the world's vehicle production sits in Japan. Now, if these guys are trying to prop up their currency because they're busy collapsing, or there's inflation, what does it mean to you and me buying a car or a motorbike? It's a big problem. Then Citibank predicts UK inflation could hit 18.6%. Now, look, they all come up with these funny figures. I don't care about the points, care about the fact that it's double what it is currently. Next year, due to the expected perpetual rise in gas and food prices. People, this is higher than the peak in 1979, which was post the OPEC oil shock. So the trend, remember the trend, the first time in 40 years, the first time in 15 years. This is the first time for many different categories, for many different records. Let's just skip the next one. Go to the second last paragraph. Despite a fairly good week of returns last week, records have been broken and not of the good kind. Global equity market capitalization has declined by $30 trillion. People, these are big numbers, okay? This is the largest global equity market cap loss on record ever in the United States, right? Just to put it into perspective, in 2008, the loss was 28 trillion. Guess what, people? This year's not even finished. The year's not even finished. The trend is downwards. People, this is just the beginning. And I really hope that you'll grasp one thing today. Watch my previous presentation and you'll see where I'm talking about this. There's this fake perception that somebody somewhere more intelligent than you knows what's going on and he's ensuring that everything's going to be okay. It's the first lie. And the second lie is that this happens frequently. These crashes happen frequently. 12 to 18 months and this recession is over and life carries on back to normal. That's the second lie. And the third lie is that America is going to be okay, right? They're the biggest, baddest guys out there. They get over everything. People, I said this in the previous presentation, America's gone. I told my clients in July this year, I said to them, I'm buying myself a farm in America. The eyes went like this because I only deal with retired people and they like to have you close to them. I said, don't worry, I'm going to buy a farm there because it's going to be for free. The US dollar is busy collapsing. I'm going to buy a farm for 20 times cheaper than what it is now because I'm going to use my currency. Guys, South Africa is a good place to be. Americans, I've got a sales pitch for you later in this presentation. You really might want to consider this. And I'm not being funny. I'm not talking down to it, but America's in deep trouble. And if you've got a load of money, you might want to send a small percentage to our country because our country is going to boom. We are ready for this global change. So let's carry on there. There's been no room to hide for the losses because the losses this year has been so bad, right? With total return data going back to 1928, people. Okay, if you don't know what 1928 means, that means just before the thing that's called the Great Depression, okay? The numbers of the years in which the S&P 500 and the 10-year Treasury bond were both down, right? You have to go all the way back to then before both of these were negative, okay? There's only been 5 years, and there was 31, 41, 69, 2018, and 2022. However, more staggering, there's only been 1 year where both of them have been negative, and that's by more than 10%. That was this year. People, this year, both of them have been negative by more than 10%. And that's never, ever, 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 ever happened before. So grasp this thing where the world's going to be okay. Somebody more intelligent out there is going to do something to save the economy. Guys, it is finished. The reason why this presentation is called a new era, because the world, for people my age and younger, the way that we know it, is not going to exist going forward. There's going to be a new world. In 40 years from now, people are going to say, America what? America who? What is America? What great thing have they done? Because America, Fed and government has destroyed their own economy by this printing of money. Look here, when you get a flu, you don't keep shooting yourself with, vaccines and nonsense. You let your body, you boost your body's immune system to deal with it. So next time it comes, your body can deal with it. It's the same thing with the recession. When these market corrections and these recessions, they come about, these are natural things to remind people, hey, don't get yourself in too much debt. Well, what did they do in 2008? They printed money. I'm telling you now, a tidal wave is coming that they will not be able to stop. Look at this and get a load of this, right? So the previous slide, we saw that it was the worst since 1928. Guess what? It's going to get worse. Here's worse data. The rate shock. This has been the worst year for government bonds since 1865, right? Get a calculator out. It's 157 years. Anybody 157 years old? This is longer than anybody on this earth has been alive, right? It's been worse than even World War I's shock, right? Then we've got the inflation and rate shock, the graph on the right-hand side. It's the worst year for equity since 1872, right? 150 years exactly. People, this is stuff that we can't comprehend. There's no financial analyst or clever guy that can say, okay, well, we're just going to tweak this in the Fed and tweak this, and then everything's going to be okay. No, they've lost control. They have lost total control of what's going on. And so I'm telling you today's the day that you are going to take control of your own financial system, your own financial planning, your own life's financial position, and you're going to have to make some changes if you and your family is going to survive what's coming. But you can do it. Take it. We're going to try to put our presentations going forward. I'm going to talk about it a bit later. We've just made state-of-the-art offices in George in the Western Cape in South Africa, where we are going to launch a series of videos, and we want to help people change the way that they do finances. We want to help brokers changing the way they look after their clients' finances, empowering you. I'm not here to be your competition. I don't want your clients. I want to empower people. My vision is to help retired people protect their finances. If you lose your money in this crash, you're not going to recover it before you pass away. That's the risk that you're running. Watch my previous presentation, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. America's stock market was negative for over 50 years. What if that happens to your money? So let's look at stocks. So what we are going to do now is, remember these presentations, I do it for the layman. So all the clever guys out there, I'm not using the right words. I'm trying to make this plain and simple. So I've taken all the biggest stock markets so that nobody can crucify me and say you've left out this one or that one. So I got a list of all of the biggest ones, and taken their biggest caps, like the S&P 500 is basically the top 500 shares in the American stock market, etc. Right? And I'm just giving you all of this data, and I'm going to show it to you globally. Then I'm going to show you some of the biggest companies in the world and what's happened to them. Okay. All of this data is year to date. Year to date meaning from 1 January till today. The reason I do that is because essentially it's from our previous presentation until now. I always tell clients we stick it from 1 January till the end of the year, because that's a true way of not choosing which data I show you. So let's look at this. So you'll watch the highlights on the screen now. That is where the name of what we are tracking is going to be shown. So this one is the S&P 500. That is where you'll see the loss show. So everyone is a loss. So don't worry about trying to figure out is it positive or negative. They are all red. And the fact that it's also in brackets with a minus shows you that it's negative year to date. And then that is where you'll see which country this one is linked to. Because there's a lot of ones that most financial guys won't even know where they're from, because I decided to list them all. So US S&P 500 is down 19.5%. Now, earlier I said they're officially in a recession. You say, well, 19.5 is not 20. Okay, well, today they're not, but a week ago and 2 weeks ago they were. So they are officially in a recession. So let's go on to the NASDAQ, also a USA stock market, 29%. People get a load of that. That is a third, nearly a third of the stock market is gone. It's dissipated. I'm going to show you, you're never going to get that money back if you invested at the top of that. Then you've got Canada's stocks down 10%. You've got UK down 7%. You've got Germany down 18%. Remember I said I'm trying to show you the trends here. I'm not trying to nitpick on these specific things. I'm trying to show you that every single one of these are negative. I'm not trying to say, this one's more than that one, and why is this one performed better than that one? I'm just trying to show you the trend here. I want you to realize the magnitude of what's going on in the world now, because you are not hearing this on the news. You put your TV on, they are not telling you this. Your financial advisor, the brokers, the asset managers, they are not telling you get your money out of the stock market, because they know that that's going to cause a collapse. I'm telling you now, if you don't do it, you're really going to lose your money. So Germany, why is Germany important? Once again, same like Japan, where's a lot of cars made, motorbikes. You've got tools. I've got a ton of tools in my garage. That's German tools. They make great equipment, kitchen appliances, great products. People, if these economies are crashing, it means that their businesses did not turn profits. And it means that it's not attractive enough for people to invest into it. And people who are buying shares are saying, I do not see enough value in your organization, and I don't have enough faith that you will be able to turn a profit at the current evaluation. So I am going to sell your stock. Watch, carry on happening, right? Netherlands down 27%. Japan, 6%. Hong Kong, 34%. This is a massive stock exchange in the world. This was the link between the East and the West. Well, we know what's happening there with China, taking it over, etc. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons that figure is so bad. But the point is still, that is a trade route that has disappeared. It's a trade route that used to hold a big portion of the world's trade that is gone. Do you realize that when you burn that bridge, it doesn't exist anymore? You've got China mainland, 17%. Another Chinese stock exchange, 27%. People, these are big numbers, right? It's not. Remember in the beginning of the presentation, there was that one that said it's the first time that all of these have simultaneously collapsed. Not only didn't everything in the US collapse simultaneously, but the entire world's collapsed. Normally, one country skyrockets when the other one crashes because, people are moving their funds from this one to that one because, this one has reached its peak. I'm withdrawing my funds and I'm going to position myself there for the next 20, 30, whatever years. Every single thing is negative. So now on to companies, right? I said this in my previous presentation and in the one before, I said the valuations of these companies is absolutely mind-boggling. You can't comprehend how people were pushing up the values of companies that had zero value. Now you say, how can you say it had zero value? Well, you'd explain to me how a company that's one of the biggest companies in the world loses 60% in 10 months, In 10 months, this company lost 60%. Now, I know what you're going to say. You got to look at this thing long term, right? We need 5 years. Well, let's look at 5 years. Facebook's down 23% over 5 years. Did you really think 5 years ago, when you bought your Facebook stock, that thing was going to be negative? Did you think it 2 years ago when you thought, oh, man, I have made it? I've made this huge profit. This thing's incredible. Do you think of selling it? Maybe you did. You should have. Okay. Tesla, 44%. People, just do yourself a favor. Don't trust me. Just go play around with. Go find the last time in history that anything across the platform dropped by double digits. Just go do yourself a favor and go look at that. Then go see the last time everything dropped by 20%. Everything dropped by 30%. I'm not throwing out small figures here. I'm throwing out enormous figures here. 44%. Microsoft, 25%. Apple, 16%. There we go. These guys are doing the best. Who in their lives thought that the winner would be negative 16%? That the best performer would be a negative figure, right? Crazy, crazy, crazy. Amazon down 29%. Guys, in 10 months, and watch the rest of the data on this presentation. This is just the beginning. People, when I said in the previous presentation, the last sentence, I said, the world is going to go back to the basic things. I literally meant people are going to just care about one thing, and that's food, feeding their families. People are going to get to a point where they're not going to care if they even have a cell phone. They're going to go back to telling, hey, honey, I will be back before it's dark. I'm going to go find food, because nobody's going to want to buy anything you've got because they're not going to have any money. So let's look at this quickly. Global debt will spiral out of control. Tick, that's happened. $300 trillion. US stock market has collapsed. Tick, rest of the world has followed. Tick, worldwide debt will become unpayable. That's already happening. People are not able to afford this debt. Global supply chain has already collapsed. There's insufficient demand. New trade routes have already begun. Look at BRICS, and they're busy strengthening. Guys are asking if they can join BRICS. And then food has already become unaffordable for most. You say, well, it hasn't become unaffordable. It's just become more expensive. Yes, for you, top 5% wealthiest person in the world. Go on that Google calculator where you type in your salary and see how wealthy you are. If you're earning a normal income and you actually have a device to watch this presentation on, and you have the data to watch an entire hour presentation, taking your data of a video, you can't comprehend poverty. It means that you're on the top, probably 5-10% in the world. So the next portion of this presentation, I'm going to take the previous presentation, exact same slides, and I'm going to show you what happened in the last year from the same slide and updated with 12 months. So let's look at that. The first one is the famous slide that I've looked at, or infamous slide I've looked at, where America has printed crazy money. So let's look at what they did in the last 12 months. Did they decide to repent from their sins? No. Okay. Then this slide here, I'm going to have to get into it in detail again if you haven't watched the previous presentations, because my entire presentation revolves around this. So you might want to pause, quickly read all the headings, and then carry on watching, because I'm going to get into this in detail. Even if you have to watch this section 3 times, it will change your life if you can comprehend what I'm going to say now. So you've got the US government debt. It's that second blue bar, that's the highest one, at 28 trillion US dollars. That's the amount of debt that the American government has. Now, if you buy a house and you're buying it through a bond or mortgage, you've got to repay that. What rate do you repay it at? You repay it at the interest rate that the bank sets on it. Now, they deviate depending on what the government one is. They might be 0.5% more, 1% more. Now, the government has to repay their debt at what the American interest rate is at, right? So the American interest rate was 0.25%. And in my previous presentation, I explained how this is essentially nothing. From the year 2020, from 1.75, they dropped it to 0.25 so that they don't have to repay this enormous amount of debt that they built up in the last few years, because, it will cause their bankruptcy, which it now is going to, but we'll go into that. Then I explained that inflation is going to, because it's higher than interest rates and the gap's too high, it's going to pull it up. And then I said that true inflation is probably a lot higher than the real inflation. And because of that, inflation is probably going to go. So let's look if I was right. Guys, I can't lie about this stuff. Go on YouTube. My presentation dated 29th of October, 2021. It was uploaded then. Go watch it. I made these predictions. I then said the amount of interest that they have to repay is $71 billion based on 0.25%. I then said, what if it goes up to 1.7%? So the interest rate goes up. What would that dollar value be? It'd be $483 billion. Now, all of a sudden, it's a tangible figure. It's a big figure. $71 billion, I think, is something that's pocket money for them. Hence the reason they reduced the interest rate to such a small amount. But they were forced to increase it because of inflation, which I said you've got to watch out for. So now we are going to take this really detailed slide, and I'm going to show you what happened in the last 12 months. And we are then at the end going to input that new data into this calculation and see what it spits out for us. So US government debt increased about $2.5 trillion. People, that's nearly 10%. It increased by nearly 10% in 1 year, 12-month period. It is out of control, out of control. If you just follow this line, 2018, they just touched, or 2017, they just touched $20 trillion. I mean, that went up 50%. Their debt has increased by 50% in 5 years. It's out of control at the moment. Interest rates, right? So the whole presentation is centered around this key element. Interest rates skyrocketed. Now, remember in the beginning, the one with the red arrows where I showed you it hasn't increased so much in such a short space of time? That's this one. We're going to look at that a little bit later, right? So it's up to 3.25% from 0.25%. That's 3% in 12 months. Remember, they said it would only reach this by March next year? By March next year, this thing's probably going to sit at 5-6%. Okay, so take this information and let's input it and let's look at it side by side. So you went from $28 trillion to $31 trillion. Then you've got the interest rate going from 0.25% to 3.25%. So what does that mean? You multiply that figure by that figure, and what value do you get? $1 trillion US. Okay, so $1 trillion US. Okay, that's a figure. Most people don't even know what that means. Let's have a look at it. That's how many zeros it's got. Okay, now if you're a wealthy American, I know that everyone wants to be a millionaire in American terms. If you were a millionaire, you could buy an incredible home for your family, and you're pretty much sorted. And not many people have reached that. Imagine you got to do that 1 million times, right? So that lifestyle you've created for yourself, multiply that by 1 million. People, that's the size of a decent city, or a decent our country. Maybe in some other countries, that's small cities. But imagine owning 1 million of those houses. That's not 1,000, it's 1 million of those houses. That is the amount of interest America has to repay per year. Not once off, per year, If they stay at where they are, I can promise you this figure is just going to get worse and worse right now. Okay? So that's the interest alone, let alone the fact that they keep printing money and creating more problems for themselves. Now, this presentation slide was one of my previous presentations. And in this, I compared the amount of money that they printed to South Africa's GDP, so the gross produce of our entire economy, and I compared it to multiples. So in the first 12 years of printing, they printed 1 times our country's GDP. So South Africa's GDP as a country was, say, 300 billion US dollars. And so America printed 300 billion US dollars. 2020 came and they printed 12 times that. Then 2021 came and they printed 4 times that. So everybody thinks, okay, so they are printing less, therefore it's good. Well, it's not less, it's still 4 times higher than what it was, 400%. Imagine your investment gave you 400%. You would love it, right? This is 400% return, for the guy that's borrowed them the money, and it's per year, right? So that figure I just showed you of $1 trillion US is the equivalent of 3 times South Africa's GDP. Just let it sink in, okay? So every year, America's government has to repay the people they borrowed the money from just to cover their interest, not to repay the money. When you have a bond, you repay more than the interest so that the bond becomes less, so you become debt free. They are not doing that, okay? Just repaying the interest is 3 times my country's GDP. Now, you can say it's a small country. I don't care what you say. It's 3 times our GDP. That's just your interest. That's not repaying your debt. Guess what? Your country's financial system is out of control, and I don't think you'll ever be able to fix it. It is too late. So let's look at interest versus inflation. Once again, this is another presentation slide from our previous presentation where I show you that the relationship between interest and inflation should be close to one another. So take 2020, that's probably what you would call a healthy relationship between the two. The two are close to each other. And then I said in 2021, I said, look here, that we've got a problem. The gap became massive. And because of this big gap, I predicted that only one thing could happen because inflation is not going to slow down. In fact, I said it was probably higher, meaning that the only thing that could happen was that interest rates had to go up. Guess what? I was right. A lot quicker than all the analysts said. All the analysts gave these small figures and, maybe 0.5%. Then they did 0.75%. Then they did double that, actually 4 times that in a really small space of time. So what happened since my presentation? Please go and watch the previous presentation to get the depth of what I was trying to explain then. Interest rates increased and inflation skyrocketed. Now, if you look at this thing, right, I want to explain the relationship between these two, because the average person out there saying, okay, I always hear that, if inflation goes up, interest goes up, and everybody knows the saying, but do you understand why? So let me explain, right? Here's my cell phone. For argument's sake, let's say it's worth $500, South Africa, 10,000 Rand. Here's a pile of cash. Let's say the equivalent value, so $500 or it's 10,000 Rand. If inflation goes up, okay, by 10%, it means the cell phone is going to be sold at $550 or it's going to be sold at 11,000 Rand. That's a 10% increase. If interest rates, which is your cash, stays at 0, which remember that's what it was in 2021, hence the reason I said it had to go up. If interest rates remain essentially at 0, you will not be able to buy the cell phone in 12 months from now. Okay, so the US Fed has got this conundrum, right? If we don't increase the interest rates, our currency is going to become worthless, right? Because you're going to sit with $500 and the item is going to be $50,000, or maybe not that quick, but you get the point, right? The cell phone is going to be 20,000 Rand. You're going to sit with 10,000 Rand, and the purchasing power of your investment has halved, right? So if we don't increase the interest rates, our currency is going to become worthless. So our other option is printing money, but the printing of money has created more money in circulation, which meant that the value of your dollars become worth less. I believe the reason they went with that option is because most people don't understand that. Most people understand this one. So they thought, okay, people won't realize what's going on. We'll print money. By the time it's caught up, I'm not in office anymore. And, you know, I got away with it. So this is where it gets scary, right? Look at this. The gap between these two was 5%. If you round it off to the nearest percentage, guess what's the gap? 5%. So yeah, sit again 12 months later, and I'm going to make a prediction. Guess what my prediction is going to be? Which direction do you think interest rates are going? Okay. Remember this slide earlier when I had all the red arrows and I said, you know, look at this thing, it's skyrocketing. And I said, compare it to 1980. And I said, you know, the reason I compared with the bottom before it went up was because the worst is still about to come, people. The worst is still coming. You tell me, give me a reason why I should not believe that interest rates is going to go up to 20%. Give me a reason why I shouldn't believe that. You're not going to find a reason. You know, for 3 years, I've been telling people, warning people, stay out of the stock market. A big crash is coming, right? People brushed it off. You know, some odd clients have left. They haven't had the patience to wait it out. People, this has already started. This collapse, the shock has already started. Let's look at Bitcoin versus gold. In my previous presentation, I spoke about cryptocurrency versus gold. A lot of people were saying, you know, cryptocurrency is going to replace gold as the new safe haven. And then I showed this chart and I said, well, that's not possible. You can't say, I'm going to replace your oats breakfast with wheat if there is not sufficient amount of wheat to feed the same people that you'd have had to feed with oats, right? You can't tomorrow tell China, we're going to stop feeding you rice, we're going to feed you wheat. It's not going to work. The amount of people, the only resource to have that's sufficient to feed all those people is rice. That's the same problem you've got with the cryptocurrency. Those blocks is this only amount of cryptocurrency that there was 12 months ago, okay? Let's look at what has happened with this since. And I'll tell you that the reason why they have collapsed, which you'll see now, is because you've got to understand the mentality of people. If you're a business owner and you need cash quickly, the first thing you sell is your boat, your motorbike, the things that you can get cash in hand quickly with. Guys, it is easier to sell cryptocurrency than anything else in the entire world. You go, click, you can do it on the toilet if you want. This is not something that's difficult. It's people say, oh, you're against cryptocurrency. I was the first one that said I would buy cryptocurrency if I had to use it as a form of means for my financial system. You know, if that's the way my bank says, I'm not going to issue it notes anymore, we're going to do crypto, I'm all for it. I'm not against it. I love technology. I've been for the last 2.5 years building software for my own organization. I'm a computer geek. I've built computers myself. I'm pro technology, right? But you can't take something, make it something that it's not, and think that it's going to survive a storm. You know, you can be in a storm and think that everything's going to be okay until the storm comes, and we'll see who's really going to stand against the storm. So what happened, right? Bitcoin dropped 53% year to date. Okay, 53% gone. Gold's down 9%. Okay, now I'm going to ask you the question, right? This is a bit of a trick question. By how much must your investment grow for you to get back to the position you were at? Now, people normally quickly answer and they'll say 50% and then 9%. Well, that's wrong. For crypto, it has to go up by 100%. It has to double for you to get your money back. Gold only has to go up by 10%. Let that sink in. There's a multiple of 10 difference between these two. The one has to go up by 10 times more than the other one. In other words, if I give you a flight of stairs and I tell you got to run up the one, and the one is 100 meters and the one is a kilometer, the one is 10 times more difficult. Not just 10 times more difficult, but your fatigue is going to kick in a lot quicker with the one than the other one. So please remember that. For my clients, guys, we're in a good position. So in closing, what does this mean for you? For my clients, they can sleep at night. They've got peace of mind. They don't have to worry about anything. You might not be in the same position. So considering nearly half of my first prediction has already come to pass, are you ready for the full prediction to come to pass? Are you positioned for what's coming? Let me tell you, since 2015, I was doing presentations showing people that Russia and China is trying to take over the world's financial and military leadership. They are busy doing that. They don't get it right in the next year. I can guarantee you they'll get it right in the next 10 years. What does that mean for the way the world has been carrying on and for the way that we know life has existed? Now, I've been planning for this. I have been setting up systems, software for the last 2.5 years so that I can help brokers better manage their clients, so that I can help brokers sit in front of their clients. I've got a heart for brokers. I've been one for 30 years, investment advisor, looking after my clients, giving my all, giving my heart, putting it all on the line to look after their hard-earned wealth. But I realize that you have some restrictions. If you're not computer savvy the way that I am, since a kid in school building computers, being savvy with technology, then you have got a really big burden. I've been able to reduce brokers' admin by up to 80% with software that we are in the final stages of completing. I've got a heart to help you. I'm not here to be your competition. I know that our industry is cutthroat and that everyone is scared of the next guy next term and scared of somebody taking away your clients. I'm not interested in your clients. I want to help you better look after your clients. My heart is for the end client, very specifically retired clients. I've been serving retired clients now for a decade, and I've been serving majority retired clients for the last 5 years. So this is where my heart is. I've positioned my company to majority look after retired clients. And my goal is to really look after majority of South Africa's retired market. I've got a game plan for it. I've been planning for this for years. My software is going to cater to not only take the strategy that I've got in which you can invest a retired person's money, but manage it from an iPad anywhere in the world. You get a phone call, you need to do anything. It is simple. I tell you, it is easier than navigating Facebook. If you can have a Facebook account, you can navigate my software as a broker. So I've catered it for all ages. If you're 70 years old and you're saying, I'm not done yet, I still want to look after my clients, I enjoy this, I'm going to go to the grave doing this, I want to help you look after your clients. Now, we are in the final stages of finishing our first franchise model. So if you're interested in an opportunity to get involved as a kingdom financier, saying that I want to push the agenda of taking something forward that's legit, a real business where you can make a difference in people's lives, please contact us. This is just a snapshot of our offices that we just launched, which is the blueprint for all our future offices, our franchise model. This is just a sneak peek. It's in the final stages, and we are getting ready to launch this throughout South Africa. We want to be the biggest independent brokerage in South Africa, catering for retired people. Of course, we'll look after all groups of people, but my heart is retired people because they don't have a chance to recover losses. And if you look at my previous presentation and you look at the 50+ year gap in which the American stock market was negative, you can't pass that. You can't recover from that if that has to be the position we are in now, which I truly believe that we are. So give us a call. I'm putting Lisa's details here. She will put you in touch with the right person, whether you're a client, a broker interested in the franchise model. If you want to find out more information, give a call, send her an email. But please, we are here to make a difference. We are here to help people protect their finances. Look at our track record. There'll be a list of videos with a link when we're done here. We've done a whole bunch of videos. We've put a lot of effort into trying to share who we are, where we come from, what our goal is, and why we are on earth. We want to make a difference. Now, if you are overseas, this is for you. If you are saying, I need to diversify my funds, and I'm talking about the wealthy guys, the guys who are saying, I don't care to put a percentage of my money in a third world country like South Africa. I'm telling you, now is a good time for you to do that. The world is busy changing. And in South Africa, we have got something coming that is incredible. Keep an eye on us. We have got incredible people that have been left behind in this country that are getting geared and getting ready to take the world by storm. I've got a network of people who are ready to change the way that the world views Africa as a whole. Now, partner with us, make contact with us. Even if you say, look here, I just want to find out for now, in a year or two from now, I can promise you, you're going to look back and say, I wish I found out about them more earlier. You don't have to make a decision now. Even brokers, clients, you don't have to become a client now, become a broker now. When 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you're going to say, I remember this guy said that. So for that reason, in case you don't remember who we are, subscribe to the channel. We will put out more frequent presentations than we have. We spent the last 6 months very in detail getting our franchise model up and running. So we weren't able to put out as frequent presentations as before. But then also keep in mind that our clients are more up to date, not just by these presentations, but there are other things that we do for them. So there's a benefit to being our clients. It's not just a matter of saying, okay, I'll subscribe to this channel and get all the information, because that's not all the information that our clients get. It's not all benefits that our clients have got. So please make contact with us, take hands with us. We are looking for kingdom financiers. You know you are, you know what that term means, and you know if you are that person. Make contact with us and we will take it from there. So if you have stuck around to the end of this presentation, thank you so much and have an incredible weekend. God bless.